And of course, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the President and CEO of the Indiana Chamber, Vanessa Green-Cinders, and our 51st Governor of the great state of Indiana, Governor Holcomb. Let's give them a hand as well. Well, Governor, I'd like to go ahead and just start off with you. Could you please just describe in your own words what the Hoosier Huddle is and how this idea originated?
Well, you're partly responsible. I think what better place, first of all, than to be in Hinkle Fieldhouse? I guess you can tell I'm all in. Maybe we clear the tables and the chairs away after the programming's done. We can go full court. But just thinking about when I think about that movie, obviously, and seeing, I went to Pittsboro Elementary School, and there were two people in that movie. To President Danko's point, Wade Skank and Libby Skank, who ended up, Wade was Ollie, and Libby was a cheerleader. And when I'm thinking just about how to get anything done in life, but obviously in our respective careers, it's a team effort. And everyone has a role, and it's just as important as the other role, whether it's coming off the bench or setting a pick or rebounding or blocking out. And I kind of see the whole state as I get around, and I'm fortunate to be able to get around the state a lot and hear from all the different plays that are being called in that huddle. And if you think about the last thing, I believe, I've seen the movie 1,000 times like you, but the last thing I think the huddle says in that timeout before Jimmy Chitwood goes out there and drains the last shot is team. And then maybe the last thing said in the movie is, I love you guys. And that kind of just strikes a chord with me about how we all approach leaving our communities a little better than we found them, and why we're doing what we're doing as servant leaders. And so when I think about the different terrain, when I think about the different views, meaning could be a river, it could be a lake, could be a reservoir, it could be a prairie, could be a field, could be a industrial complex, urban, suburban, rural. We all have different needs. Some are more urgent, some are more let's run up the score and add to it. And from a state perspective, with all of the different agencies here, these folks are passionate as well. So how can we, because I get things whispered in my ear all over. I was in Wabash, Logansport, West Lafayette, Evansville, New Harmony in the last couple of days. And at each of those stops, I met with folks from various other counties that attended those events, and I'm constantly getting updates and input and feedback. So this was an attempt to make sure that we're all looking kind of at the same menu and we're not leaving anything on the table.
Thank you.
You, by the way, asked me to come to your county, and I didn't come dressed in 1920s garb. It was like a Dillinger theme, the only one not dressed appropriately. But you asked if we could talk about all these different programs, funding included, that's out there that may not be known by everyone in the room. So this is kind of born out of that. You're to blame.
Well, I'll take the blame, but you're dressed appropriately today. He's even got his checks on, so you have to check those out later. So, Vanessa, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, especially as one of today's partners. And for those who may not know, could you just explain a little bit about how the Indiana Chamber supports all of these community leaders and the relationship that the Indiana Chamber has with local and regional chambers?
Sure. Thanks, Marcy. And it's such an honor to be in front of all of you today. And thanks to the governor and Marcy for coming up with this idea. I think from my perspective, so I started as the new CEO for the State Chamber in January with really the idea that as the State Chamber, we are the statewide business advocacy organization, and we want to advocate and support the voice of business across the state. And in my mind, the best way for us to do that is to do it in a very team, collaborative, and partnership approach. So today's event is a great example of how the only way we're going to solve the challenges for the state and take advantage of the opportunities is if we all work together, and the State Chamber is really excited to be a part of that. So as Marcy mentioned, I think some of the ways that we want to make sure that we lean in and support our local and regional partners. Are events like this and giving kudos and support to folks like Marcy and her team in Owen County. And I see many other local and regional chamber executives here. You all and all the local leaders who are in the room are really getting it done for the state. And the state chamber, our mission centers around advocacy, right? Helping cultivate and maintain that world-class environment for Hoosier enterprises to operate and to continue to allow for economic growth and prosperity for the state. So our work with the legislature, with the governor, with state agencies, that continues. I think for me, an opportunity that I see for us going forward is to really take a increasing holistic and comprehensive approach that's centered around partnerships, because I think that a lot of the challenges and opportunities for the state, will be solved both with the legislature and the governor, but also with all of the partners that are in this room. And so the state chamber has an economic vision plan, Indiana Prosperity 2035, that lays out 6 key areas from workforce, education, wellness, quality of place, infrastructure, and economic growth, and starts to define goals and metrics in each of those areas that we want to work with all of you to figure out how we implement them and what works for one region and what works for another region, right? Like solutions might look different in different parts of the state. So look for us to increasingly really lean into outreach with all of you as we continue to want to tackle all of those opportunities that lay ahead for the state.
Thank you. Now, Governor, throughout your administration, you have championed numerous transformative state programs, and those programs have hinged on local and state government collaboration. Could you explain for us a little bit how you fostered that collaboration, and how do we continue to keep this trend going?
Well, I think collaboration's key to it all, working or not. And when we're talking, I mentioned this just earlier, when we're talking with potential investors to come into our state, your communities, there are a few boxes that have to be checked, and there are a few that kind of go without being said. And investors can detect pretty quickly if there is alignment among maybe a school corporation or a hospital or the government, local and state. If folks are working as a team in unison, harmoniously, they can tell. And there are options out there of places that do and don't collaborate. And so the competition is so fierce. You have to be fast, and if you want to be fast, if you want to run a high tempo offense, you better know who's going to be where when, right, before the pass is even made. And so that alignment, I think, is key. Scaling up in all these different areas is also key. How are we going to build programs that actually move the needle or improve our game? And we approach it, you can pick your number, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, but we often look back 10, 20 years. We look at where we were, we look at where we are right now, and then where do we want to be? And that in 20 years or 10 years. And that then causes you to cast your vision, set your goals, create your to-do list, how you're going to realize that vision, those goals, or that punch list of what to do when, who's doing it, the roles, and then making sure that you measure what's occurred. And I think oftentimes what's forgotten, and what I love about this whole collection of talent in one gym, is we have to share the results, good, bad, or ugly. And if we have more ground to make up, so be it. Let's get back at the round table and let's figure it out. But also sharing the good news creates almost a flywheel effect. And lots of people are listening and watching what's going on in your small town or your big city or the state of Indiana, small state, relatively speaking. But we're punching way above our weight class because people all over the world are watching how we are conducting our affairs. And are we efficient? And the successful ones want to be part of that. And so having that plan is what keeps that collaboration always leaning in, always playing the ball, rather than waiting for it to come to us. And I would just say that how we feed off of each other is key, and how those plans roll out, short-term and long-term, will keep that collaboration going. So many of the things that we do, they're not one and done. They're multi-year, not just investments, but plans. And that's by design, because that keeps us moving in the right direction. And then if we're nimble enough or agile enough to make those tweaks along the way, then that's even all the better.
One of my favorite sayings is, make a plan and work a plan. I think I even told you that when I first met you. And Vanessa, speaking of collaboration, I know that is one of your great passions, including how the Indiana Chamber partners with the local and regional chambers to advocate for business across the community. So could you just mind highlighting some of the ways that our local leaders can get involved on the local, regional, and state level with the chambers, and why is it so important to be involved with the chamber?
Sure, happy to. I love talking about this stuff. So first of all, I would say all of you, I hope, are members of your local or regional chamber. I think that's where it starts, right? And I think I see the state chamber's role as to support and be a great partner in those efforts, but it really starts at the local and regional level. So first, I would get involved with your chamber, I also think whatever your other passions are in other areas, we're going to talk about a lot of those this afternoon, whether it's health, workforce, childcare, education. There's lots of ways to get involved in your community, and I think just generally speaking in the world that we live in today, really emphasizing that importance of community involvement and civic engagement. I think we need to do more of that, right? And that's a role for us as local, regional, and state leaders to really model that and to ask folks to do that. And I think, one of the things I would highlight, we are working with the local and regional chambers on every year we do a chamber day in February or March here in Indianapolis, where we bring chambers together with local business leaders to come and talk to our elected officials in the State House about issues that matter to the business community, and it's a chance for all of us to convene. And we are really focused on making 2025 the best year yet, and the most engaged, most folks coming to Indianapolis, make it as accessible and inviting and a great opportunity for everyone to be involved. So I would say keep your eyes out for more information on that, because I think that that's just an example of how we at the State Chamber, working with our local and regional partners, want to bring advocacy and engagement opportunities to local businesses across the state to get involved, to make sure your voice is heard, so that the issues that you care about in your community, whether that's childcare, energy, water, pre-K, you can then make sure you're talking to your elected officials and your legislators about why they matter and what you need done to make sure that your community can continue to be prosperous and continue bringing that growth and continuing to keep Indiana like number one and the best place for all of us to be. So.
And Vanessa happened to be speaking at a meeting that we had in Owen County this morning, and you mentioned bringing the officials and individuals to Indianapolis. I already had people jumping on that, so thank you. That's awesome. So Governor, back to you. In the last 7.5 years, you have traveled this great state of Indiana far and wide. Can you share with us a little bit about what you have learned about Indiana's towns and cities?
How long is this program? My goodness, I've learned a long list. And I just look around this room and I've learned so much from so many different individuals that I can cite specifically what it is and what program was born out of. I see the Mayor Laporte here, who last time I stopped by, he was pointing out a project where they converted a blight into a place of crime and where folks would gather and a real challenge for the community into a real asset. And then from that and other examples, we went to work to try to figure out what could we do to offer as a state local communities to address blight and conversion and elimination. And that's where, in part, where the Lilly Endowment, $250 million, comes from, is knowing that it can work. Now, what can we do to do more as a state? But I think what I've learned, it's a long list. We don't have that much time, but is there is real strength in diversity. And as I mentioned earlier, just the different views, the different terrain, the different walks, the different industries, there is strength, and we're so much closer to each other than sometimes I realized just growing up in Indiana. I often think that, one city, Terre Haute, is so far away from Indianapolis. It's not really, it turns out. Or Muscatatuck is so far from Crane. It's not. When we're talking to folks who are in the defense industry, they see that as so close, like neighborly, quite honestly. And so we have really tried to work hard at organizing in a regional way. It's not just ready, but it has to do with infrastructure, it has to do with health, it has to do with education, workforce development, fill in the blank, but thinking regionally packs a more powerful punch. And the sum truly is greater than all of the parts, especially when we start acting that way. And when I think, again, here on a basketball court, when you think about all the different positions, these are assets. Our neighbors are our assets, whether it's rural, urban, or suburban. And by the way, every community is a beating heart, if you will, and you want that to be a healthy heart in every way. And that's the lifeblood of the whole state of Indiana, is community by community by community. Now, how do we accent what's going on at the ground level from a state perspective? And again, you'll meet, I think the most important part of today is all these breakout sessions, because you're going to meet people they come at this to serve, and they have the head and the heart to serve communities, just like where they came from. So it's not some bureaucrat, way far away. We're all on this same team, and how we can bridge those gaps and how you come away with their cell phone number to work on problems is going to be where I would judge the success of this assembly.
So that leads right into the next question. So what do you see that you would like our community leaders to gain today from these breakout sessions and panels?
Well, just one is to get cell phones, to know people on a not just professional basis or just, but on a almost personal basis. And two, to be able to, in person, it's so frustrating for me. I go all over the world trying to sell the state of Indiana, and I'll end up in some room in Europe or Asia and learn something new. And it took me going there in person to learn it. I'm thinking, man, we could have just done this on the phone. Like, we talk all the time. You text me all the time. But there's something about being in a room together that allows you to just share all the details and not feeling rushed. And okay, let's circle back. But to know that we're here, look, I'm here for another 208 days. That's 4,900 hours if you're doing the math like I am. and I can tell you, I'm looking at all the agency heads and staff, and they are too. And we want to get as much done. There's a little bit of sense of urgency about us because we've got this to-do list, and there's a shot clock above that goal, and it's ticking. And the very people that we serve are counting on us. And there's a real opportunity to come out of a gathering like this, because again, we're being judged against the competition. And around the world, there's a cynical bunch out there that sees their governments failing them. And you can see it in Europe, you can see it in Asia, you can see it in America. But we have this rare opportunity to continue to run up the score. And it takes the collaboration, and we can prove this is a model that works, and we can improve on those metrics with the very programs that we come up with together. And it'll start in all these breakout sessions to hopefully you learn something you didn't know going into it. but I think coming out of it is the most important part about what we do after we connect today.
Absolutely. And my last question is for both of you, and since that shot clock is ticking, okay, what call to action would you give our public servants and our community leaders here today? And do you have any parting advice to inspire them?
Your father-in-law is listening to you
I know,
right now.
I know.
No
He's
pressure.
right there. So I guess I would say I think it's all about pulling up another chair and supporting the next generation. And I would say, some of you know this, I am an adopted Hoosier. My husband brought me to Indiana about 2 years ago, and we couldn't be more excited to be here. But I remember the first meeting that I had as president and CEO of the state chamber. It was with the governor, and he was so welcoming, enthusiastic, sharing of advice and perspective, connected me to so many other leaders around the state and in local communities that helped set my course as I take on this job. And I think that as community leaders, that's what we need to do, right? Support the next leader who's going to come and work with us, as the governor and Marcy and we have talked about, to collaborate, to partner, to make sure that Indiana continues to move forward and run up the score. And so I always think about how, as a leader, I can help support the next leader.
Yeah, and I would just echo that and say, don't ever think you have to go it alone. This truly is, we have a team spirit about us that guides us every single day. We don't think about how are we going to solve this. We think, how are we going to solve this inside just one office in the State House. Also, there's another opportunity. My call to action would be back to where do we want to be in 20 years when you're implementing or executing on that plan of your communities, to be thinking about all the transitions that are occurring. Obviously, thinking 20 years ago, we have a rich heritage in the state of Indiana. I'm proud of our heritage. I want to protect it. I want to preserve it. I want all the good about it. But I also know that we're leaning into, as a state, where we're a manufacturing powerhouse. You just look at your membership list, #1 per capita in the country, and now advanced manufacturing. We're an ag state. We grow and we make things and we ship things. We're increasingly becoming a leader, setting the pace in terms of the creation side of the equation. So creating, researching, creating, and then making, testing, and then selling and shipping. The whole ecosystem is being built right here in the heart of the heartland. And you start to see the microelectronics hub, the hydrogen hub, the biotech hub, the One Health Innovation District, where we're seeking to be the epicenter of all plant, animal, and human health discovery. And that sounds like a really over-the-top statement, but it's within our reach. It's happening right now when you stop and think about the companies, small, medium, and large companies, that ecosystem that are going to determine what the future is in terms of products and quality of life. And then it all rests on the placemaking initiatives where people want to go live. And Judd, my brother-in-law, your father-in-law's here, my brother-in-law's here. And I have often talked about the common denominator between a vibrant, growing community is the outdoor amenities that are available. And that's what gets people to want to move into a small, medium, or large setting. And so as our economy grows, as our private sector continues to grow, we get to make more investments into education, K through 12. We get to make more investments into workforce development pathways, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it all feeds, again, off itself. But when I say itself, I mean yourself and myself and we as a team. And so my advice is, don't ever think you have to go it alone. We're here. We want to partner, and we want to show the way for the next generation. President Danko and I will be going right down the street to meet with some high school students involved in a innovation program where they're creating their own companies right now, selling their own products right now. And to think about them doing that in the state of Indiana, because they're going to be sitting where you're sitting in 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, time goes like that. And we're setting the stage for all that right here. So I just thank you all for being here and taking the time, and can't wait to hear what you get out of the breakout sessions, and then we'll tweak it and we'll on to the next challenge.
Well, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Governor Holcomb. Thank you for your time today, and also just thank you for the Hoosier Huddle, for this opportunity for all of us to be here today, to have these resources and tools available to us to take back to our community. And I also just want to thank all of you. Your attendance at today's event and the information that you gain from today, those are the things that you need to take back to your community. You might find a resource today that you didn't know existed, or maybe there was a program that you did know about, but you didn't know all the details to it. Or perhaps you're coming from your community and you have some sort of challenge, but today you might find the solution to that challenge. No matter what's in front of you, your community needs you to take this information back to them. That could be the difference in your community's future. So in that spirit, we would just like to suggest that you all divide and conquer. We've got a lot of great panels. We've got a lot of great breakout sessions. Instead of your entire team going to just one, go to as many as you possibly can. Gather as much information as you can today to take back to your community. Now, those sessions will begin at 1 o'clock, so you have roughly about 20 minutes to kind of stretch your legs, maybe get another drink, but hope to see you at 1 o'clock at the first session. Thank you very much.
Team.